Sonic has had a rough transition into 3D. Okay, you've heard that intro a billion times. Let's ask a new question now. Never mind Sonic's rough transition into 3D. Is Sonic actually good? And not just for games, because if I was asking that today, it would be a pretty straightforward answer of okay, great, good, horrible, decent, horrible, good. Straightforward. Let's all sit here like responsible adults and discuss the question of franchising. Has Sega done enough to solidify Sonic as a good enough brand that could survive the odd fuck up here and there? And over there? And also like over there somewhere? Oh, and also over here. Well, first off, let's all get on the same page. This isn't just a question of, are Sonic games good? Because that's subjective, and I also answered it like 2 shots ago. This is a question of Sonic as a brand, his image, how people perceive him as he walks down the street. And that extends beyond just his video games too. Sonic the Hedgehog, coming to a movie screen, smaller screen, ice cream, and Funko Pop near you. Is this brand image Sega have forged and burned and reforged and burned over the last few years capable of carrying this game to success? Now that I think about it, it's a much larger question about IPs and the industry itself, but meh, I'm locked into Sonic now. I may as well throw my hat into the ring. Sonic the Hedgehog as a character, video game, and mascot was developed as a direct competitor to Nintendo's Mario. There's no two ways about it. From the branding, design, gameplay, everything was designed to kick Mario where it hurt. The big M on his hat. And it worked temporarily. Sega actually got a majority hold on the 4th generation console shares for a while, but Nintendo had more than Mario in their pocket, so blam, 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 the Super Nintendo wins. But it was an important first step to set up how Sonic was going to survive past the first 3 years of his life. Actually, I'm looking it up right now. Hedgehogs can only live up to about 8 years at a push, so you're wrong. Sonic is the cool one. Sonic is better than Mario because he's angrier, spikier, and cooler. It's a branding image that sticks, and this groundwork was laid down across the 90s to essentially indoctrinate a host of kids to back Sonic over other characters. And once he'd gotten a few good games under his belt, things only got bigger and stronger from there. Sonic Spinball was developed exclusively by the American developers at Sega Technical Institute. It wasn't that good, but it still sold well because it was a Sonic game dropped in holiday of 1993, and that's what we're looking for. Sonic's brand at that stage was strong enough to carry game sales just from his namesake, something that arguably has continued up until now. So that's it then. Case closed, Sonic the Hedgehog is a good franchise because his games still sell well despite Sonic Forces being shit. Bye! Yeah, no, we're not quite done here. As Sonic moved into 3D, I'm not saying the line again, game reception started to slip from "this video game is the second coming of Christ" into the abyss of positive to mixed reviews. Sonic Heroes was developed under extreme crunch conditions. Shadow the Hedgehog was a bold new direction for a Sonic character to take, and both were received with generally mixed reviews. Not the best, obviously, considering the retrospective legacy that Shadow 2005 has left on the internet, but both games were still a massive commercial hit, so everything's okay, right? If the cash keeps on printing, this brand is totally fine. So guess who just got a call from HR? 2006 brought with it a foul and disgusting creature. Me. It also brought with it a pretty bang average video game called Sonic the Hedgehog. The brand destroyer, the reputation obliterator. It goes by many names, all of which I've just made up on the spot, but I think it's pretty clear by now that Sonic 06 has hurt this franchise for the worst. A brief rundown, Sonic 06 was advertised as a reboot for the Sonic series, built for 7th generation systems like the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but due to everyone's favourite severe crunch and straight up bad stylistic and writing choices, ended up releasing as a buggy, dark, edgy mess. It's probably the first mainline Sonic game to ever be received as fully bad, not just meh, average, this was a really bad Sonic the Hedgehog game, and it caused a small shift in how people view Sonic. This was no longer a franchise that went toe to toe with Mario and other big gaming giants. This was like a lab experiment people constantly watched with held breath. Will Sonic's next game be actually good? Unleashed and Generations say yes, Boom and Forces say no. And you want to know the worst part of that all? Sonic 06 sold well. Okay, so maybe saying Death of a Hog was a little bit overdramatic, but it's a point. Part of Sonic's brand was slipping fast. Can't be cooler than Mario if you become known for poor games. And if you become known for poor games for long enough, eventually your brand isn't enough to keep up that commercial success. Sonic Spinball, that was fine. That was a once in a blue moon spin-off game. That could be kind of meh and people hardly blink. But your next generation flagship Sonic game releasing in holiday 2006, You can't really mess that one up without people starting to think of you differently, especially after the visibly declining quality in Sonic games since Adventure 2. This is all a little overdramatic as Unleashed Generations released favourable reviews, and various spin-off titles like Riders, Rush, Advance were all doing favourably. But if we went over the full history of Sonic the Hedgehog as a brand, I'd be here for 10 hours, so let's just skip to the here and now. People still like Sonic the Hedgehog. Most of his games are still pretty good, people love the characters, other projects in the franchise, so by all accounts, Sonic is still a good franchise. But it would have still been a titan without very obvious crunch to get Sonic 06 and Heroes out on time. And quite frankly, I think steering clear of the obnoxiously dark and edgy storylines in 06 and Shadow the Hedgehog would have helped quite a bit.
This probably all sounds rather hopeless from an outside perspective and quite frankly dumb from an inside one, because yes, I've been sidestepping various positives about Sonic since 2006 because I want to talk about them all through this. Fuck me, I forgot how bad that reproduction case looks.
Sonic exists outside of video games, poorly sometimes, but he certainly exists. There's been numerous TV shows and now some movies surrounding Sonic, and I think they've actually served a much bigger role in keeping the Sonic franchise running than most would assume. Sonic Underground, never mind, let's move on. Sonic Boom, back when Sega thought they could actually make a genuine spin-off franchise out of Sonic Boom, a TV show was developed set in that world, and some people genuinely like it.
Me personally, I'm more of a consumer as Twitter clips and short form content kind of gal, but from what I've seen, there's genuine reason to enjoy the series. They mentioned fanfiction.
Let's act up my Sonic fanfiction. I'll pick something family friendly.
It's filled with a decent amount of dry and almost absurdist humour when taken out of context and compressed enough on YouTube. The critical analysis of Sonic Boom, the TV show aside, I think it's sort of overtaken the original video game as the first thing that comes to mind. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is one of the worst scoring Sonic games across most review websites, and arguably it tanked worse than Sonic 06.
Okay, just give it to me straight. Is this too much video game talk for a section where I'm not really supposed to talk about video games?
But thanks to the TV show becoming a sleeper hit, I think most people just ignore the Sonic Boom games now. Rise of Lyric being abysmal doesn't really matter when the general public just thinks of Boom as that one TV show with a slightly weirder character design. It's like an accidental cover-up. We didn't mean to psy-up you into forgetting about our bad video game, it was just a bit of a happy accident. Good content in alternative mediums can help people forget about a slip in quality in the main releases, and to be honest, I think Sonic uses this really well with its characters in TV shows and movies. Hell, people loved the first Sonic movie so much, I remember there being genuine discussions about Sonic becoming a movie-first brand, because it was so much better than the current state of Sonic video games. It was pretty much the video game movie adaptation that saved all video game movie adaptations after all. Obviously that might have been a little too far. I don't see Sonic ever abandoning video games outright because that's what the franchise is built upon. But I also think it would be pretty unfair to say the movies and TV shows and comics and everything else don't help support this franchise when the video games can't.
Because could you imagine taking away all of those things and having the only time we interact with these characters be in video games? I think people would hate them! All things aside though, Sonic is a good franchise, obviously. You don't get to be around for 30 plus years without doing some things right, but there are just a few little things Sega could do better to return Sonic to where he needs to be, Mario's direct and aggressive rival.
Make better games! Consistently, make better games. Frontiers is a good first step. I constantly describe it as the best 7 out of 10 game you'll ever play. It's not amazing, but it's definitely at least good, which is more than we can say about some of these games at this point. If you combine a steady stream of good games, a really successful movie series that's basically rewritten the narrative of video game movie adaptations altogether, and a TV show that people on Twitter seem to love at least, this is a really strong franchise.
It always was. Sonic's a household name, like it or not. It'll take a lot more than a few bad video games to kill him. And by a lot more, I mean a few more. And by a few more, I mean like one more game like Forces, and he probably would have been done for. But the future of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise is safe for now. Because he's the only thing Sega have left, really, except for Yakuza. Fuck.